Ibn Sina presents his arguments for God's existence in a number of his writings, mainly in Metaphysics of the Cure, The Deliverance, and The Pointers and Reminders. These works address many other topics as well, like logic, mathematics, and natural philosophy. Ibn Sina employs a range of different arguments in these writings, some of which argue for God's existence from motion, inspired by Aristotle, others from causation, and even others from composition, which is an important corollary to arguments appealing to causation. What is of particular interest to me is the contingency argument, which posits that there must be a necessary being. That something exists and that there is existence, he begins, is the first thing impressed upon the soul and simply cannot be doubted. A claim which we can take to be clear enough and in need of little defense. Ibn Sina goes on to add that everything that exists is either contingent or necessary, which are the primary divisions of existence. The necessary in itself being that mode of being that is in itself wholly determinate and as such is in no need of a cause to explain its existing at all. And the contingent in itself, that which is indeterminate between existence and non-existence, in which case either the presence of a cause selectively determines that it exists, or the absence of a cause selectively determines that it does not exist. Using this division of existence as a starting point, he argues that there must be a necessary existent. If, on the other hand, the existence that immediately presents itself to us is necessary, there is a necessary existent. On the other hand, if the existence of which we are immediately aware is only possible existence, then, given the description of the possible, it must have a cause. He then next observes that the existence of this totality itself must be either necessary in itself or possible in itself, given again that these are the two primary divisions of existence and that the totality itself exists. On the one hand, the totality cannot be something necessary in itself, for the existence of a totality subsists only through the existence of its members, in which case that which is necessary in itself would be necessary through another, namely its members, but this is a contradiction. Moreover, it is impossible that there should be any conditions under which the necessary in itself should fail to exist, for this is one of the very criteria by which one identifies necessary existence. If, however, all the members of the totality exist only possibly in themselves, and things that exist possibly in themselves can fail to exist, then if each of the members of the totality fail to exist, the totality itself would fail to exist. In other words, there is at least one condition under which the totality of all possible things could fail to exist, namely, if all of its members fail to exist. Again, however, there is no condition under which the necessary in itself could fail to exist, should it exist. Consequently, the totality of things possible in themselves cannot exist necessarily in itself. On the other hand, if the totality is something existing possibly in itself, then in order for the totality to exist, it needs something that provides existence, which will be either external or internal to the totality. If it is something existing internal to the totality, it itself would be one of the members of the totality, and as such, that member cannot exist necessarily, since the assumption is that the totality includes only things possible in themselves. Thus, the cause of the totality's existence cannot be internal and necessary in itself, and the totality is possible in itself, the cause of its existence being something internal to it. Again, this external thing cannot be something possible in itself, for everything existing possibly in itself is included within the totality. Consequently, this external cause of the existence of all things, possible in themselves, must fall within existence's other division, namely, the necessary in itself. Therefore, concludes Ibn Sina, this external cause is something that exists necessarily in itself, and so there must be a necessary existent. He argues that the necessary existent must be unique, showing that a contradiction would follow if one supposes that there were more than one necessary existent. If one postulates two necessary existents, A and B, there are two possibilities. If A is distinct from B as a result of something implied from necessity of existence, then B would share it too, being a necessary existent itself, and the two are not distinct after all. If, on the other hand, the distinction resulted from something not implied by necessity of existence, then this individuating factor will be a cause for A. And this means that A has a cause and is not a necessary existent after all. Either way, the opposite proposition results in a contradiction, which to Ibn Sina proves the correctness of the argument. He argued that the necessary the existent must be simple and not be a composite. For if it were a composite, its internal parts would need a feature that distinguishes each from the others. The distinguishing feature cannot be solely derived from the parts' necessity of existence, because then they would both have the same feature and not be distinct, a contradiction. But it also cannot be accidental or requiring an outside cause, because this would contradict its necessity of existence. He derives other attributes of the necessary existence, such as being immaterial, intellective, powerful, of pure good, willful, sufficient, and self subsistent, among other qualities, and justifies its identification with God.